For many, success is defined by achievement. But for those like you who work in service, it's often about lifting others, about seeing light in places where it's been dimmed. Imagine finding hope and resilience in the most challenging places. Fred Cadoshia, founder and CEO of Perfectly Imperfect, knows this better than most. A motivational speaker, life coach, and fashion influencer, Fred has dedicated himself to bringing hope to the defeated, showing them that their circumstances don't define their destiny. What started as visits to local jails and support groups transformed into a full scale mission, empowering people across all walks of life. Fred saw firsthand the power of encouragement and purpose driven guidance. Now, through his brand Perfectly Imperfect, Fred brings his message of empowerment to a wider audience, blending inspiration with style and proving that lasting change begins within. Join us today as Fred shares his journey and his perspective on building a life and brand that serves others. Welcome to Impact Innovators with Felicia Ford, where we dive into the strategies that empower changemaker brands to leave a lasting legacy. Think of this podcast as your audio playbook for meaningful action. What's possible when thought leaders, disruptors, and pioneers align to share their journeys? I'm Felicia Ford, your host, bringing together the brightest minds and the most groundbreaking ideas to help you drive change, navigate through the sticky stuff, and elevate your brand. Whether you're tackling funding hurdles, looking for growth strategies, or seeking the perfect balance between profit and purpose, we've got you covered. Stay tuned and be a part of a movement that's setting new benchmarks in how we think about progress, community, and doing. Let's innovate, impact, and inspire. Welcome back to Impact Innovators. You finally get to hear from the man on the cover. It is Fred Cadoshia himself. We have seen the Perfectly Imperfect manifesto. We've gotten a little bit of a glimpse into the story and why he exists as this particular brand. But I want to say to my friend, Fred, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Felicia. How are you?
I am great. It's a new year. It's cold, the kind of weather that I love. How are you today?
Doing well, doing pretty good.
I'm really excited for people to really get an understanding of what Perfectly Imperfect stands for, the work that you're doing. And what makes your story so compelling is how real it is. I mean, you've walked into spaces that some people would be afraid to. You've walked with people that others probably would shy away from. And I want to start with that. So, what inspires you to meet people where they are and help them rise up?
I think it's more of my own story. You know what I mean? It's just some of the things that I experienced over the years. It started as kids. It was always one of those things that you always saw some kids who just didn't fit in. And, I saw a lot of bullying growing up, man. I came up hard. So it was just a lot of bullying and a lot of separation. It was just a lot of fighting, things like that. So it was, I think that really started just as a child. I just always just have compassion. I just look and see another kid wasn't treated well, or I always had compassion for that child as a child. So didn't know that was something different at that time, but I just knew that I never wanted to see anybody hurt or being bullied. I was really sensitive to that. So I think everything started with that. And just during the course of my life, just my journey in general, I wanted to create a movement that would represent people that don't quite fit in all the time, especially with society the way it is, or the system that we had. I call it the matrix, but it's like you have to fit in. And you have to be this way. If not, then you're alienated or you're placed in this particular box, or they try to place you in a box. I want to create a movement where where you try to impact and you try to encourage people not to go into that direction. That's where Perfect Imperfect came from. We all have our issues. We all have something that we're trying to grow or to evolve in. And you have to accept that. You have to accept our imperfections sometimes and just come with good intent.
And I love how Perfectly Imperfect speaks to the power of finding beauty in what others might overlook. And I mean, you just shared that some of these formative experiences really set the stage for this work that you're doing now. And on the cover, we have you as a creator of culture because you're creating music and you've got things that I don't know that I'm able to share publicly yet. But you've got so many different types of media that you're sharing with the world. And I know that you recently created a giving circle. And so there's different ways that people can access what you're doing and how you're serving. But I'd love to know what inspired the name and the mission of your brand.
Fred Cadoshia was inspired by my father. We both share the same first and middle name. So he recently passed and I just wanted to honor him with that. So it was
Mhm.
something that I wanted to do. It was a process that I've had for the last several years, probably the last 3 to 4 years,
Mhm.
3 years, I would say. And Fred Cadoshia was the name,
Mm.
regardless of his prior passing. But that was something I just wanted to honor. It was a change in direction for me. It was a change in season. And again, it just honored my father more than anything.
I am very sorry for your loss. I can't imagine the depth of that loss, but also the power that you are transforming this energy into supporting others and serving others now. But you mentioned as you built the foundation, and I'm just gonna assume that you didn't know what this would lead to in your younger years, and
Absolutely
now,
not. No,
yeah.
absolutely. I had no idea. I just knew that I started doing community work, working in recreation centers, working in the jail system, and it was just little things. And I've always, everywhere I went, I always wanted to inspire. You're meeting people in their lowest points in their lives, and yet so many people want to kick people at that point in time or judge them. I was just never really big on that. I was more like, we can make it past this. You can get out of this. That inspired me. Getting me
Yeah.
more than anything. That inspired me. So it was something that I had passion for, and it just continued to build over the years. Just continued to build and just the timing. And again, it was something that I wanted to bring out several years, well, a few years ago. The pandemic kind of put a halt to that. And it was just a lot of other little small things that was transpiring in my life at that particular time that I just had to wait a while, and you have to trust the journey on that. So it was a process, but that was the time.
Now is the time, my friend. I love it. I can only imagine that as a creative, and again, you've got music, you've got some other things that are coming. I can't imagine that you're doing this alone, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah. So what does it look like to co-create or to create?
It's crazy. It's busy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm telling you, it's crazy. But it's a lot of fun though. It's just a lot of fun. It's
Mm,
liberating when you have something that you have a passion for and you're around so many beautiful people. I have an incredible team, Felicia. I have an
mm,
incredible team of people, man. I'm telling you. I mean, they're just incredible people. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, honestly. They were the ones. I mean, when you out here in this war, in this world, and we know it's like a war out here, and when you out here, it can be draining. And there's one thing about it, doing this work, is you attract all kinds of people.
mm.
So you attract negative people, you attract positive people, but you attract all kinds, and you don't quite know sometimes. So sometimes when you're involved there, you got to really be careful how they're moving. That can become draining. You're constantly thinking of ideas and you're constantly thinking of ways of how you can inspire people to never give up. Because this is one of those things that no matter how old you are, from 8 to 80,
Mhm.
you don't give up on your dreams, man. Believe in yourself. You continue to move forward. Continue to move forward to what you believe. That's what this movement is about. It's about just not giving up, not allowing anyone to place you in a box, not allowing yourself to just give up on life because people push you into that
Yeah.
place. Because they will. They'll try. And not everybody's strong enough to deal with it. I want to shine another different light. Just shine some light on the beauty of people recognizing their worth and understand that you don't have to be perfect to be a beautiful person.
Right. I have to reference the fact that my audience, they're all change makers in some shape or form, whether they're working at a nonprofit or they're working at a mental health agency or in education, or maybe they're also a coach or a consultant of some sort. We're all in the business of people in some way, shape, or form. And you just touched on a couple of different things. And as you were speaking, I'm reflecting back on the Perfectly Imperfect manifesto that's in the magazine. And you talk about storms, you talk about overcoming those storms, and you talk about people who are struggling to understand or know their worth. Now, as a change maker, and we're in the business essentially of changing people, that's one of the hardest things to do. Um,
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
I'm just reflecting on some of the work that as a professor and working with students, and I'm like, okay, you got to do your homework, right? Or in the mental health agency and having life coaches or mental health support workers. But the biggest thing I can reflect on is that ultimately it was that person having to realize their own agency over themselves and
Right.
overcoming. So share with us, Fred, what it means to understand your own value and creating that discipline within yourself to do better.
Wow, that's well, it starts within. It definitely starts within. You must first, you got to love yourself. We got to love ourselves first. And before we can give or receive the love, the desire from others,
Hmm.
we have to reach within ourselves and find and know who you are, and know your worth. And that way you don't have to place yourself into places where people will place you, or place yourself into a mold, or place yourself into a box,
Mm,
because that's what the world will do if you
right.
don't understand truly your worth. So I always like to use this phrase that I heard a couple years ago, but it says sometimes peace requires you to be quiet, even when you're right.
Mm,
And knowing your worth is not responding to everything and not having to answer to everything. I'm big on that. I don't answer. I don't explain anything to anybody.
yeah.
And so you have to know that you're worth something. You have to know that you don't have to uh, look like a model on a magazine. You don't have to look like you go to the gym 6 or 7 days a week. You have to just understand that you bring value. You
Mm,
bring value to people that belong to you, and you have to find your people.
mhm.
So that's how I feel about that.
And I think that's it's easy to say it, right?
Mhm.
But we know that people are fighting these internal challenges every day. I don't
Right.
remember if it could be John Maxwell, maybe. He talks about enemy, but the biggest enemy is between your ears, your inner me being your
Yeah.
enemy, right?
Absolutely.
And you just really solidify how when you conquer that inner me, you help to change that narrative inside. It makes existing in this matrix, as you call it,
Right.
a little bit easier to navigate and cope with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I
And
agree.
yeah, I just, I, our work centers on growth, right?
Yeah. It's
Um, centers on growth. And sometimes we prioritize growth in our business or growth in our finances, all of these external ways to grow, but putting self on the back burner. And that's one of
Yeah.
the things that I love about Perfectly Imperfect is that it centers you as a person.
Absolutely. 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 And I want other people to feel that. And that's something that people are lacking. And it's no
Mhm.
face to it, Felicia. There's no face to it. It's no matter what you're driving, what you're looking like. I met people that you just wouldn't expect that to be.
Mm,
And it's just something I believe we should bring more of. We have a lot of people out here who are inspiring and impacting people, and it's beautiful. We need more. It's not
right,
enough. It's changed the culture when it comes to speaking more life and then trying to understand people sometimes, trying to understand that people have their battles and you
right.
don't see it and they're not going to share it with you. because a lot of people are embarrassed. A lot of people don't want to be
Right.
transparent. So it's look at it as a sign of weakness. It's one of those things that we have to be more compassionate about. So people have to develop that because people are not going to be that compassionate, unfortunately. And so again, Perfect and Perfect builds around that. That's what this brand is for the people who feel that, and I just want to encourage people to be able to have that strength to do the same. It's a beautiful place, actually. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So just be able to stand alone and stand with that strength of knowing who you are, regardless of what anyone says, what anyone's talking about, or you stand in their ground. I want to build that. There's a lot of people that go home and nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Mm.
Trust me. Um, Perfect and Perfect cares.
I'm hearing you speak and I'm just reflecting on some of the other conversations we've had with other guests, and I'm remembering um episode 19 where we talked about from anonymous to anomaly, and then Jade paints. Those are two episodes that I can distinctly remember. Episode 42 and episode 19, where we talked about imposter syndrome. And while you haven't used those words, you've painted a picture of really getting to the undercurrent of imposter syndrome for people who are in leadership positions where they are competing against outside forces, yes, because there's competition in business and in life, but they're mostly competing with themselves when it comes to imposter syndrome because it's that inner narrative, that inner story.
Right.
So you saying that it has no face, it can affect anyone in
Anyone.
different positions.
Absolutely.
I feel like this is again a message that we definitely need to be having. And I look at work cultures and I look at communities where there's gang violence and there's crime. And all of this boils down to how someone feels about themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Capitalism wants us to
Exactly.
want and need and desire. And I hear you saying that your brand is really focusing on the person as a whole and who they are as an individual.
Who we are as an individual. It's understanding that we all have our backgrounds that develop us. And I think we have to be more mindful that when people are dealing with certain things and understanding there's a lot of pain behind a lot of smiles. And again, just recognizing that people have to understand that you're more than what society can place you to be. That's the biggest message when I look at situations like that. And I met men, grown men, who share stories, and you wouldn't believe it. You just wouldn't believe the stories that this is the world we live in.
And I hear again, I hear what you're saying, and my brain, the wheels are turning. Okay,
Mhm.
the
I
wheels are
know. It's always,
the
it's
wheels are
always
turning as far as what power this brings to communities and what power it brings to families and households, how people can show up in the world differently, how they can show up in their leadership positions differently, how they can show up in their relationships differently, or how they can show up for themselves differently. And it's just a ripple effect of good change, of positive change, which we definitely need in the world. Fred, I think that this is the beginning of something incredible. And so I want to thank you for your courage and your bravery and your determination and your perseverance in inviting us into your space and into your creation. What can we expect from Perfectly Imperfect in the future?
uh, I'm working with some incredible people, some good music, and some good messages that you can listen to when you're working out, or you can listen to when you're studying, or you can listen to when you just need a little inspiration. But it's all positivity, or it's something that can just allow you just to feel a little bit, just understand the emotion. Whether it's talking about single fathers raising their children, it's talking about love that we've all shared in life, and scars from love that we've had, and the scars that we live with sometimes, the pain that we live with, and love, understanding some of the hate that goes on out here. So it's just about inspiration. It's nothing to go on a dance floor or anything like that. It's more something that can inspire you, hopefully, and something that you can listen to again while you're in the gym or you're just riding or you're sitting at your desk or you just need a little boost when the world can get a little heavy. And some videos that's coming out around March, doing some photography, some images that's relating to certain messages. And so I look forward to all of that. It's just about creating, and everything that's done is about inspiring to give people a different vision of life and hope. That's what we look for. So hope. As you are ending your statement, you saying inspiring hope and a message of hope, I am recalling the logo of Fred Cadoshia. And I just have to say to everyone listening, you have to see the logo on the magazine. I'm not going to tell you where it is. You can see it inside, but Fred, tell us, what is this logo? Because I've had so many people ask me, can they get one? They want, I won't say what it is, but they want one of what you're wearing. They want to access it. They want to know if it's available on other things. But tell us what inspired this logo. It's shaped like a diamond. It's an F and a C. Stands for Fred Cadoshia, and it just stands for imperfect diamond. It's a perfect imperfect diamond. I love it. Well, Fred, I've been exposed to different cultures and different ages and ethnicities. And one of the things that you said in your manifesto, you talked about living abroad in Asia for a while. And I can only imagine there's this quote that says something about the body or the mind that's been exposed to different things cannot return to what it used to be. That's probably all wrong, but when I read that, that's the quote that came to mind for me. But I also know that in leadership positions and the the type of people that you mentioned in the beginning, those misfits or the people that stand out, it can be challenging to deal with people when you stand out for good reasons and others feel like you're in competition, but you didn't even know you were in a race. Oh my gosh, it comes with the territory when you have that actually they become like a cheerleader to a certain extent. Let you know that you're relevant. You're saying to yourself, you can't help who gravitates to you. So you're getting a certain level of attention, and people find ways to, I'm gonna break that down, or I'm gonna build a coalition, and I want more people to hate that person. I want more people not to look at him the same way or look at her the same way. This comes with the territory. It comes with rumors and people not liking the fact that you may be getting a certain level of attention, and they want you to explain it. They want you to no, let's just change who you are. Let's get out of character, Fred, and come down to over here and be hated. But it's I'm hearing you say don't play small. Yeah, just don't play small. You just have to literally stay focused on what your goal is and what you're trying to achieve. But you have to be strong. You have to know that you're built for it. I really don't even like to use the word haters, but I guess jealousy, envy pretty much describes it. But I build from that negative energy. It fuels me. I build off it. It just makes me stronger. It makes me say, okay, I gotta stand up stronger. And I turn that pain into passion. It just makes me become a better version of myself. Well, I think that you have a very unique perspective in how you approach this because I was in a conversation recently where people were talking about the word resilience, and I don't know that we're using that word correctly because resilience means that you go through the hard thing and then you bounce back to what you were before. But right. People use the word resilience to describe foster youth or people who've been incarcerated or other people. I don't think it's applied correctly because those people don't necessarily return to who they were before right. their pain or their trauma. But I think that we can use the word strength because it's this physical or emotional, this combination of mental tenacity that allows you to remain strong even in difficult moments. So, Fred, what's the secret for you to differentiate between being strong and simply going through
and letting things get to you?
Uh, we all carry a power within us.
Hmm.
It's a quiet strength that rises in the moments of adversity. You just have to tap into it. So to me, going into that inner strength, and again, it goes back to knowing your worth. That aids to your strength. One step at a time. Just always finding reason and meaning and not allowing anyone to define you. Whatever goals you're trying to attain, whatever it is that you have to do. But it's a mindset. And it's definitely something you have to practice. You have to continue to work on it because it gets to you. Strong you are, you have to have good people around you. You have to have good people, building you up, keeping you strong. And another thing about remaining strong is that as you continue to evolve, people will make that mistake of defining you by where they met you.
Mm.
It's okay, I met this is where you are, but they met you in a dark place. They may have met you at a certain time in your life and they may not have any capacity of the update.
Right.
So to them, they keep you there. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
So you have to stay strong in that aspect. It's something you have to stay consistent with. It's not something you just build. So you have to constantly stay mentally aware of that, just being strong and just not dealing with the white noise for the most part.
Well, you said one of my favorite words, which is mindset. And that is another topic that I've addressed a few times on some solo episodes, episode 12 and maybe episode 30, but talking about mindset. And I don't think people really understand how important that is to your everything. And you also described some things that are centered around identity. And you said you've known people and met some people who think a certain way or they're in a certain position and we might not think that they would think these things about themselves, but they do. But people forget we're human, right? Um,
Right,
and I think that our world, at least in the Western world, it centers things around your numbers. So
right.
your numbers in your bank account or your numbers on the scale or your numbers in your clothing size. And those things again feed the matrix. But if we focus on these things that you're talking about, this mental strength, this self identity, again, this is what a part of your brand really encourages and drives home is that we are human. And as humans, we have storms that come. What would you say are some tools that have helped you the most with rising above storms?
Well, first of all, we know storms, it's like challenges coming from every direction. It's in the midst of it that you realize you find your true strengths. It's when you're going through it, you feel like you can't endure it or you can't deal with it. That's when you realize how strong you are because you continue to last. As your strength emerges and you become more resilient than ever. So,
Hmm.
as every storm you endure, and you may have a scar, but you'll find yourself stronger during the midst of your storms.
Storms sometimes lead people to see themselves differently. And if something isn't going as it quote unquote should, people then feel like, oh, I failed, or oh, the business didn't do so well, or oh, this quarter's looking crappy, or oh, I made a mistake during my presentation. And then
Yeah.
they sit in that, right? They sit
Right.
in what happened in that moment, and then it defines them forever. They're taking it with them. So there's two things here. And again, this is me understanding what your brand stands for and the work that you're doing and the messaging that you're sharing, but the ability and the capacity to reframe failure as a
Right.
lesson and then letting go of things. So talk to us, Fred, about failure and leaving the past behind and letting go. What is your process for those things?
Well, failure is not the end. It's just a lesson. Understand that you're going to fail. At least it lets you know you're doing something. So sometimes we hate to fail, and that causes us to not want to try. Most of us are embarrassed, or we feel like failure is just the end of the world. But you have to fail. Each time we fail, we gain experience, and we go stronger. And you learn from your mistakes. It shows you're trying, and you understand that success is built from persistence.
Mm.
So you have to continue to accept that. The hard things in life, you don't want to shy from.
Mm.
That holds the key to unlocking your full potential. So failing, so many great people, if they only told you their stories, how many times they failed. How many times I fell down, just continue to get back up. I just refuse to lay down. I refuse.
Right.
So just have to have that mindset in that aspect. And as far as the past, that's a heavy subject because you hold on to the past, you keep yourself stuck. It's moving forward past the rearview mirror. You learn from it, you let it go, and you focus on what's ahead. And because the future is full of endless possibilities, but you can't move forward thinking about everything that's going to the past. That holds you hostage in some fashion. You some of the things that you're healing from. When you're healing from a situation, you can't go back and even entertain that situation in no form or fashion. You're still emotional entertaining it, and it keeps you from moving forward. So you have to let it go. It's going to be painful. It's going to be painful. I'm not saying this stuff is easy. It's just going to be painful, and we forgive. But if it's in our past, it's in our past for a reason. I just believe that.
I think those are some very powerful life lessons that can fit for anyone, anywhere. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about I had a session with a client last year around this time, and I just remember coming up with this analogy, which I'm not going to take credit for as the originator, but I just thought about an airplane. And
Right.
we at Felicia Ford and Co, we talk about mountains all the time. Everything's about momentum and scaling a mountain and getting to your mountaintop experience. I was sharing with her, you can't climb the mountain if your backpack is too heavy,
Yeah.
or you can't take off in the plane if you're carrying baggage and luggage that belongs to other people. And so that for people who are visual people, leaving the past behind in order to strengthen yourself and to continue on in your journey. I
You
think
have to.
this is
Yeah.
I really appreciate the simplicity but also the depth of the nuggets that you're sharing, because again, these are the things that I didn't know we were going to talk about today, but it's the beginning of the year, right?
Right.
Everybody's rushing to plan out their resolutions or their intentions, and I think that sometimes we skip over this inner work that you're talking about.
You learn, just to go with the flow. You take each day as it comes. You try to pay attention to your environments. You slow down and just listen a little bit. You accept your thoughts and you work and you pursue your passion. You create your own lane. You just create your own lane. You don't have to make sense to anyone else. You create your own lane. You can be different and you don't have to be perfect either, but create your lane.
Yeah.
And only, I love this, you just got to think about just only being afraid of never having the courage to try something new.
Mm,
When you're
absolutely.
doing things, it's you. It's always just you against you. It's you trying to evolve, trying to grow, trying to be better than you were the day before. So you can't beat yourself up for making wrong choices sometimes. It's part of life. You have to step out your comfort zone. You have to live boldly. Always remember, it's just you against you. You have to live boldly. You have to be bold. And always remember that understanding that you're not perfect. And once you understand that, it's one of the biggest, greatest realizations you understand. You strive to do better when you understand that. And when I do my daily prayers, I always tell God, I say, I know I come up short, coming up short,
Mm.
but I do my best. I work hard to try to stay in that lane to be the best version of myself. And surround yourself around those people who believe in that as well.
You talked about building this muscle of mindset. And I can tell you, Fred, every business coach that I've ever worked with, a lot of personal development books, it's a universal message that mindset is something that you work on
Absolutely.
every day,
Every day, every day,
every day.
every day.
And you share these things, you share them so passionately and you share them with such conviction. It sounds like you enjoy the journey, Fred.
And that's it right there, the journey. That's the most exciting part. It's like all the lessons that you learn in the process. It's more than just a destination, just experiencing the lessons that come along the way. They all are good because you learn something from them, but there's just different phases, and all it does is makes you better.
Yeah. I really appreciate that you reinforce number one, self identity and self awareness. You reinforce mindset and working that muscle all the time. You've shared that this is not just something you pulled out of the air, it's been something that's been with you since you were a kid. And the work that you're doing encompasses so many different ways for people to experience what you're offering. I personally listen to some of the motivational videos on YouTube often. And so I just imagine your music and your messages being in that lineup, okay?
Mhm.
And then the cinematography that you were mentioning, I just see that these are going to be ways to touch people through their senses. And I feel like those types of things really put or place an imprint on your soul. It's why marketing is what it is. You see things, you hear things through music and through TV and whatever programming. And so folks have it figured out. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to see that of who you are and how this message is coming through you to touch people. And I know that you have a specific audience that you want to reach, but I think that these are all things that as leaders, it would take, it would be, I think, mindful of us to recalibrate and revisit some of these things for ourselves and then share these things with our teams as well, because we're only as strong as our weakest link. And not saying that, your weakness is just forever a weakness, but really who's hurting, who's struggling, right?
Yeah.
Who needs us to rally around them and support? These are the things that we can use. These are the tools that we can use to strengthen our teams, to strengthen our relationships, to strengthen our households, to strengthen our communities. And I just really want to say thank you for sharing that with us today.
No, thank you for having me, Felicia. I really appreciate it.
I'd love for you all to stay connected with Fred Cadoshia and his brand as he continues to grow. He mentioned some things that will be coming out in March. You can certainly go to media.feliciafordandco.com/power-moves to see his article in the 2024 edition of Strategic Edge. Until next time, my friends.
Hey, Changemaker, real quick before you go, if today's episode helped you in some way, the best way to thank me is to head over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the channel, and leave a review. I'd also love to connect with you over on social. You can find me at Friends Call Me Fee. Until next time, keep changing the game.